What's up, YouTube? So Joel and I were having a conversation, and we were discussing the concept of using like a white light to set dot brightness for all conditions. And Joel was like, "Hey, what are you talking about?" So we decided it might be worth walking through kind of the way we instruct our folks at work on how to set the dot brightness for all the conditions that they're likely to encounter during their shift. So anybody who's ever messed with a red dot, I just happen to have one here. The brightness goes up and down, and depending on the conditions that you're in, it can look too bright, too dim, or exactly where you want it to. But then as soon as you leave the room you're in, you go outside to shoot a match, you go outside to practice, whatever, all of a sudden the dot's very, very dim, and it's a problem.
Yeah.
Is that tracking so far?
For example, I pull the gun out of the safe in my basement. I'm like, oh, cool, the dot, I see the dot just fine, but then I just put it in the case. I get to the range, and I'm like, holy crap, is this thing even on?
Correct. So the way we tell like the folks at work the way that to set the brightness, because they might be inside when they get ready, set the brightness one way. Later on in the day, they might pull their gun in broad daylight, and now the dot's washed out, and that's a real problem. So a quick and easy way to make this work is you would find kind of a white wall or some sort of like light colored surface, stand 3 to 4 feet away from it, turn the light on and shine it at that white wall, and then set the dot brightness so that it is bright enough to be seen and not washed out inside the halo of that bright white light. Most weapon mounted lights anymore are somewhere in the order of 1,000 lumens. Mm-hmm. So I would turn the light on, I would aim it, I would adjust my brightness so that it shows up nice and bright inside that white halo. And now when I turn that light off, the red dot might look a little bit too bright in the conditions that I'm in, but it's likely to work for all lighting conditions I will encounter. So if I were to now leave the 70 degrees and sunny office building that I'm sitting in, and I were to go outside in broad daylight, I pull my gun and I look, yes, I've got my red dot in the lighting conditions, noonday sun. And the very next call, I might find myself in a dark warehouse where all the windows are taped up, or a dark basement. And as I draw my gun, I turn my weapon mounted light on, and I still have my red dot, it's not washed out. And while it might not be perfect for all the lighting conditions in between, it will suffice and at least get by. As opposed to drawing the gun and having a light or a dot that is so overpowering that you almost can't see through it. And so you're having trouble picking up your target, or even worse, you draw your gun, it's a bright lighting condition outside, the dot's washed out, and you have a problem. So am I making sense? Is this tracking?
This makes sense. How does occlusion tie in with this then?
So
I do know some people that like carrying occluded because they had the thought it was easier to find the sight, or it was. I've heard people say it's like less sensitive to outside lighting conditions. Mm-hmm. Do you agree with that or no? Like if you had black tape behind the optic.
So I would say if you occluded it with like some dark tape, or maybe one of the occluder clips over the front. The same situation still exists. You're just likely to be able to run the dot a little bit dimmer in those situations.
Okay.
Because it's not going to be quite as washed out by the light coming back through. You can still do the same thing. You'll set the brightness to whatever is acceptable, and in that white halo against the wall. And then when you pull it out, it won't be perfect for all lighting conditions, but it will suffice. Because ultimately, since we don't know the lighting conditions we're going to need the gun in, we're kind of making compromises. And so we're setting left and right boundaries for, hey, it will absolutely work in the brightest, and it will absolutely work in the dimmest. It may not be perfect everywhere in between, but it will be good enough to be usable.
And I assume if you had to pick either having it too bright or not bright enough, you'd rather have it too bright.
I think so. Yeah, I think too bright is probably going to be better, because then it's a matter of making sure I'm looking through and being target focused, as opposed to I can't find my dot, or I'm spending this extra time looking for it when I should be doing something else, like transitioning to my irons, or some other method of aiming.
No, that makes sense. And so that would be the same rule of thumb regardless of like daytime, nighttime, inside, outside, whatever time of the day it is, or week, or month, whatever season, you're just always following those rules.
Yeah, so when I was getting dressed for work every day, the last thing I would do, double check mag's topped up, press check the gun, find a bright, most like U.S. indoor walls are some level of grayish or white or something like that. So I would just find a blank wall. I'd stand 3 to 4 feet away from it, turn on that 1,000 lumen light, kind of like, and it's, you know, pretty pretty violent flashback of the light. Put the dot in the middle of that. Adjust the brightness to where I was still able to see the red dot. Not that it was overpowering, but I was clearly able to see it. It's not washed out. And now that dot brightness will work for everything from noonday sun down through dark basement. Now, if you go into a dark basement and you only bring the dot up, the dot's going to be exceedingly too bright. But in those lighting conditions, you need additional white light to do any kind of work anyway. So what I'm really trying to set is the dot brightness that's going to work with white light.
Sure. No, that makes sense. And if you're outside, like if it's daytime, it's going to be bright enough that you could see it. And if it's inside, it might be a little bit much. But at least you'll for sure be able to see it.
Right. What we're trying to avoid is the need or the temptation for, like, you know, as you're driving around, maybe it's swing shift. You started out, it was you started work at 2, but now it's 8. The sun's gone down. It's not quite dark yet, but it's getting dark, and kind of like you glance down and look in your holster, and the gun's just lined up just so where you see how bright the dot is, and you're like, oh, that's really bright. And you go to turn it down a little bit, and now you've got it to where it's like it looks good in the holster, in the car that you're in, but then later you pull your gun, maybe you turn your white light on, maybe you don't. Given the lighting conditions, the dot is no longer sufficient for what you're looking for. So the idea is that we have kind of a standard test condition that I know if this works, and I can do this every time before I leave to go to work, or I leave to load up and go out for the day, however I'm carrying my gun. If it meets this test condition, it will likely meet the rest of the conditions I'm going to run into.
So then basically you just set it and forget it. You'd set that, whatever that thing is in the morning, and you'd probably, unless you were like maybe doing competitive shooting or flat range where you weren't going to have your light, like a range use. Otherwise, if it was a work gun, you would just never adjust the brightness ever.
Correct.
Unless the battery was like going down where you had to kick it up to keep the same level.
Yep. Like pretty much, I think that check I did, I wasn't actually adjusting the dot. It was just a verification.
Okay.
Almost never adjusted it.
So it's just to set it and forget it basically forever that you're...
More or less, but I still, you know, may call me OCD or, you know, a pants and or a belt and suspenders kind of guy. But like, you know, I was the last one that touched the gun before it went in the locker. I'm the last one that, you know, brought it back out. I still press check it, still verify the dots on, still verify the light work. Like, that's just the kind of guy that I am. So I always did the check anyway. It just made me feel better.
Hey, press checks are free, or so they say.
So they say. That is what they say.
Checking your light's free also then, or checking your red dot brightness is free.
I would say anything that you depend on is worth a check before you head out for the day. It just seems like a small price to pay.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, no, this is helpful.
Yeah, hopefully some folks, you know, it's helpful for some people. I mean, it's a kind of a specific use case. You know, I know not everybody has a, you know, an X300 or some sort of like white light source on their EDC gun. I'm a weird guy, I do. But, you know, for folks that carry white light or they, you know, duty type gun, carry professionally, I think it's a simple and easy way. Hopefully it's helpful. And like you said, it's a set it and forget it. I can verify it in a test condition the same way every time, and I know I'll be good to go. So
I like it.
Hopefully that's helpful. If you guys have any other questions, feel free to drop them down in the comments. Otherwise, if you want to do the cool guy thing, like, share, subscribe, Joel would really appreciate it.
Yes.
Me, I'm lukewarm on it. I'm really not emotional, but it would make Joel's day if you did.